I think every woman could honestly say that they were pushed into sex or sexually assaulted or raped or even at a younger age molested, it should be talked about a lot more.
And so you were so young when you were sexually assaulted. And did you carry it as a secret then?
I did. I felt like it was my fault. I was threatened.
Shame is a big part of it.
Yeah, it is. It's, I think, one of the driving factors in trying to cover up who you really are. And when you do drugs, it gives you that superpower or the ability to forget who you were, and you just become someone else. When I was arrested, I didn't have a bond because I was pregnant, is what they said. So once I was arrested, I did not get released until 8.5 years later. But my sister met me at the hospital, and I handed my son over to her, and she took care of him, and I cried for a whole year, I think.
And I'm sure you understand it differently now when you look back on your younger self, your reasons for using and the reasons why so many people use.
Yes, I do see it differently. I see myself as a child who needed reassurance that it was okay to speak up, that it was okay to tell someone, and that it wasn't my fault. If I could reach out to every single teenage girl or even a younger girl today, I would tell her, you are precious. Do not let anybody touch you in a bad way, and speak up if somebody does.
What do you do with a wound no one knows you're carrying? Today's guest grew up on a reservation, raised in a loving home by her grandparents. At 13, she was sexually assaulted while away from home, and she carried that weight quietly, the way so many survivors do. She turned to drugs to cope, and what followed was a long, hard road: meth addiction, federal charges, and a 10-year prison sentence. When Lorie Seeking Land was released, she looked around for someone who truly understood what she had been through, someone who had walked the same ground and had come out on the other side. She couldn't find that person, so she became her. Today, Lorie is a certified peer coach at Face It Together, an addiction wellness nonprofit, and more than 8 years after her release, she is walking back through those prison walls, this time to help other women learn to love themselves and plan for a life beyond the prison. She also has known the specific grief that belongs to so many in this community. In 2023, she lost her son, Matt, at age 37. Lorie Seeking Land knows what it means to carry shame, to survive, and to transform. And I'm so honored to have you join us. Welcome, Lorie.
Thank you for having me, Angela.
Oh, of course. Let's talk about growing up on the reservation, because I've had other guests on here, Native American guests, who have struggled with some of the conditions on the reservations, some of the generational substance use disorder and abuse that happens. What are your memories from that time?
My childhood memories are great. I had a beautiful childhood. As I grew into a teenager, turning 13, I started to socialize more with my friends. And that's when I was taken advantage of and sexually assaulted. And I immediately isolated myself and started smoking marijuana. I really didn't have any options of groups or anything to turn to at that time. So I isolated more and just started smoking marijuana more. About the time I was 18, I was dabbling in every other drug that came my way. And there's not a whole lot of social activities going on the reservation. So we just look for groups of people that will accept us. And that's where we end up.
For people who've never been to a reservation, and I'm sure many of our listeners have not been, what they may not understand about it is it's very isolated. Reservations are very isolated, and we have such a large, geographical state here in South Dakota where you and I live, but even in other states where there are reservations, they're often more isolated, and so there's not a lot to do. There aren't always a lot of resources, and I think people can't really comprehend that unless they've been there.
Correct. Correct. So, like here in Pierre, we have the bowling alley, we have the theater, we have the
Right.
YMCA, we have softball parks, we have parks, swimming pools. The reservations, most reservations don't have any programs like that. We have a gymnasium, um, but it's not always open for the public.
And so you were so young when you were sexually assaulted, and did you carry it as a secret then?
I did. I did. I felt like it was my fault. I was threatened. Um, all of the things that come along with being assaulted, the person that assaulted me used those comments to keep me quiet.
I'm so sorry that that happened to you, and you have to look back on your younger self and feel so much compassion. And can you talk about what you understand now? Because obviously, at the time, first of all, you go through this horrible trauma. Your brain isn't fully developed. You start using substances. I'm sure it made you feel better when you started using marijuana and then moved on to other drugs and alcohol or whatever else it was. That was a way of coping. It worked, right?
Yeah, at the time.
And I'm sure you understand it differently now when you look back on your younger self, your reasons for using and the reasons why so many people use.
Yes, I do see it differently. I see myself as a child who needed reassurance that it was okay to speak up, that it was okay to tell someone, and that it wasn't my fault. If I could reach out to every single teenage girl or even a younger girl today, I would tell her, you are precious. Do not let anybody touch you in a bad way and speak up if somebody does.
And it wasn't your fault. And I think I just recently wrote a blog about my daughter and some sexual abuse that she suffered at the beginning of high school, which I don't think I dealt with properly at the time. You know, looking back, hindsight is 2020. But I'm always looking for ways to try to understand why, when she seemed to have so much going for her, my daughter, and so many advantages, you didn't have all those advantages growing up on a reservation that she had, and I often try to piece the puzzle together, right? Like, why did she start using substances? Why were they so attractive to her? And I think the reason is so often trauma and grief. Shame, too. Shame is a big part of it.
Yeah, it is. It's, I think, one of the driving factors in trying to cover up who you really are. And when you do drugs, it gives you that superpower or the ability to forget who you were and you just become someone else.
But that so-called superpower was fleeting. Before long, Lori was not only carrying the shame and trauma of her assault, but also battling a growing addiction to drugs. The friends around her changed too, becoming a circle shaped by substance abuse and self destruction.
And my first real addiction was cocaine. And I started using cocaine when I was about 19 years old. And I realized a few years later that I couldn't do it anymore. Um, I went cold turkey. I had some friends that sat beside me and gave me water and whatever I needed. I think I locked myself in my room for a couple days just to get over that through that withdrawal. But after that, I couldn't function. I had no ambition. I didn't realize at the time that my brain stopped creating dopamine. Um, so I started using meth because it gave me energy and an ambition. And eventually I was intravenously using methamphetamine, and I did that for 15 years until I got a federal charge.
Lori, did you say 15 years?
15 years.
It's a very long time to use methamphetamine, and it has such a powerful hold on the brain. These drugs, methamphetamine is more powerful than ever, and, you know, the kind of methamphetamine that's out there now, and it just seizes the brain, and it's so hard for the brain to recover from that. Tell me how the, charge came about, that you were facing?
Okay, so I had tried to quit several times throughout that 15 years, and I'd quit for a little bit and then I'd start in again because I couldn't function. Couldn't get past that gray area of withdrawals. And I eventually moved home down to my mother's in Fort Thompson. I had my set up my own place and a whole new territory. And I noticed different people starting to pull up and ask me if I could get a meth. And I myself didn't have any. So I went and got it from someone else to give to them. And they were working with the Northern Plains Drug Task Force at that time.
So it was a sting, basically, is what you're saying.
Yep. Yeah.
So you were caught basically distributing meth, is what they would call it legally in a sting. And you received a 10-year sentence. Is that right?
That's correct.
That seems, had you had other drug charges on your record?
I had a marijuana charge in Chamberlain when I was about 21. I did 30 days for that in county jail. And the federal system uses every felony you have, it moves you up a level on their sentencing bracket. So if I hadn't had that first charge, it would have been 5 years. So since I had that charge, it moved me up to another bracket. So that's 10 years. And these are minimum sentences, or so they're mandatory minimums, is
So
what the federal
mandatory
government.
minimum. And so
Yeah,
many people feel, very angry at drug dealers and say they should be punished. We should have really harsh sentences. 10 years for you, for giving someone meth or selling it. I don't know if you sold it or gave it away, but whatever, distributing meth seems like a really long sentence.
it was. It was a really long sentence.
I mean, I've heard of people going for 2 years, 3 years, that kind of thing. I mean, I just am wondering why your sentence was so harsh just based on a marijuana charge when you were younger.
Yeah, I sometimes wonder too.
I'm sure you do. And I wonder if it has to do with economic or racial disparities.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a factor when the state gives out 6 months for the same charge. And when you're on a reservation,
Falls under federal jurisdiction, so that's something people don't understand. Let's explain that just for a minute for people. So yes, there's a difference between being charged at a state level and at a federal level, and reservations are independent nations, and they fall under federal jurisdiction.
correct.
So you were in the wrong place at the wrong time, um, being caught doing something like this. 10 years, and so how many years did you serve behind bars?
I served 8.5.
So almost the full 10.
Yes.
Tell me about what that was like, first of all, being sentenced to prison, going to prison. What was that like for you? How old were you at the time?
I was 40 years old. I had just learned that I was pregnant. So I wasn't using at the time of my indictment. Um, and when I was arrested, I didn't have a bond because I was pregnant, is what they said. So once I was arrested, I did not get released until 8.5 years later. But my sister met me at the hospital, and I handed my son over to her, and she took care of him, and I cried for a whole year, I think.
Of
Um,
course you did. Lori, let's talk about that for just a moment. I I can't imagine going through something like that, having to go to prison, knowing you're giving birth, and then, I mean, thank God you had family to help you take care of your child, but having to just first of all, every mother who's given birth knows that immediately, you wanna be with that child, take care of that child. Um, I mean, were you given any sort of assistance to cope with that?
no, no, as a matter of fact, as soon as I got back to Hughes County Jail, of course, I had my wound that needed to be taken care of. So they put me in a drunk tank and they
What?
kept me there. And they kept me there for a couple weeks. till that healed and I could be put in general population.
more trauma upon trauma for you.
Yeah. Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Sitting here today, Angela, I can't believe that I've lived through all that.
That you survived it. I can't believe it either, Lori. I think you must be very, very resilient and strong. And so you've given birth to your son, you've handed him over to your sister, you're on your way to federal prison. Where did you end up?
I ended up in Alderson, West Virginia.
Tell me about that experience.
Um, when I was sentenced, when the judge said 120 months, I made up my mind right there that I was going to change my life, change my people, try to get an education. And that's exactly what I did. I went to FCI, Alderson, West Virginia, and I looked into all their educational programs. And I started reading the policies. And one of the policies is that if you exhaust every educational class or program there, you can move to a different prison to find further education. So that's exactly what I did. I signed up for the HVAC apprenticeship program. I completed that. And I also took every educational course they had to offer in the evenings. So I was constantly in class, going to school. And I think I left there with 2,800 educational hours in various departments. And I then put in for a transfer. And then I went to Waseca, Minnesota, and I took the RDAP program, which is the residential drug and alcohol program.
Are you ready to protect the next generation from the dangers of substance use? Emily's Hope has created a comprehensive K through 12 substance use prevention curriculum designed to educate, empower, and equip students with the tools they need to make healthy choices. Our age-appropriate lessons start in kindergarten and build through high school, using science, real stories, and interactive learning to help kids understand their bodies, brains, and risk of drug use. We're already reaching thousands of students across multiple states, and we're just getting started. Visit emilyshopeedu.org to learn more and share our curriculum with your school administrators and counselors. At Emily's Hope, we believe prevention begins with education. Let's work together to keep our kids safe.
What did you learn in that program?
I learned that we need to control our emotions, first of all, control our consequences by thinking things through. And I immediately thought of the worst case scenario of any issue. And if it led to prison or led to shame, I would rethink it and do the opposite. It teaches you to change your people, places, and things, your surroundings, put yourself in uncomfortable surroundings where you can better yourself. Um, Reach out to people for help. Set up a kind of like a security team, someone you can contact. If you're in a tough spot, if you're having a hard day and you feel like using, you can call that person and they can immediately come get you. Set up safety places, just a safety plan in general for every scenario that you might use. There's so much more the program teaches, I think. It teaches you how to be in those comfortable places while you're making that transition to recovery and a recovery lifestyle. It's definitely one of the best programs that I've taken. And I think the majority of women that were in my class are succeeding today at.
Well, that's amazing to hear because so often you hear, especially at, I guess, more at the state level, but you hear that people don't get the help they need. They don't get ways to cope, and they don't really get anything out of being in prison other than being locked up for so many years. It sounds like you, because of something inside of you, also made the best of a really difficult situation.
Yeah, that was my plan.
And so you give birth to your son, 8.5 years go by. I'm sure he visited you and those kinds of things, but I mean, you get out, your son is almost 9 years old.
Yeah,
How so much lost in that of being able, to be
exactly.
with your child as they're growing up. So you're released from prison and you're almost 50 years old?
Yep, 50 years old when I was released.
Yeah. And so what year would that have been? How long ago?
That was in 2018.
Okay, so not that long ago, really, in 8 years ago.
Yeah,
Um, you released from prison 8 years ago. Did you have any desire to use drugs? I mean, first of all, one question I have, because we hear of overdoses in prisons, were drugs available in the federal prisons that you were in?
definitely.
They
Yeah.
were.
Yes.
Mhm. And did you ever use in prison?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, well, you were
Nope.
learning so much and you were just trying to improve yourself. I guess you had 8.5 years for self-improvement? That's how you have to look at it, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
did you ever get any kind of therapy for the sexual assault that you've experienced at 13 or any other trauma that you went through?
While I was in the RDAP program, um, our class was 25 women, and we went around and we all shared one thing that we were keeping a secret
Uh-huh.
for our whole lives that was leading us back to our addiction. And half of us said sexual assault. Um, so we started a group and we all shared our stories and we would clap and say, "Thank you for sharing. You helped me share too." It was just a wonderful group. And I got more healing out of that group than I did my whole life. Just being able to share my story and be honest about the details and how I felt and how I feel about it today. And I was able to say how I really felt about this person without holding back. And it was just a release of a ton of bricks. Um, and that's where I left it.
Wow, Lori, I am so grateful that you got that help. But what saddens me so much is that 90% of the women who are in prison, it's usually involving some kind of substance, or they have some kind of substance use disorder. And the cause or the root of that is trauma, often sexual abuse. And it's not getting addressed in the way that I want to see it addressed. And I'm sure you want to see it addressed.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. There are a lot of women sitting in prison right now that for the first time have shared their story with someone, and that someone was me. I got to be a part of their healing journey, and I feel honored to be able to do that for them. I don't think the public realizes how much sexual assault is in our area or everywhere.
Everywhere.
Um,
Everywhere.
I think every woman could honestly say that they were pushed into sex or sexually assaulted or raped or even at a younger age molested, it should be talked about a lot more.
Yeah, unfortunately, it is so common and often leads to these horrible outcomes for people's lives. And our prison systems, federal or state, don't really know how to deal with that. They're not really getting to the root of the cause of substance use
No.
disorder, and I'm hoping that we can change that in our society. I'm hoping by conversations like this, we can change that. But I wanna know, you get out at 2018, and you immediately are willing to go back in? I mean, did this happen pretty quickly that you're like, "I wanna go back in and help other women who are in my situations in state prison?"
Yeah, it was my goal. I wanted to give back. Um, because I had such a long sentence and I had time to heal. And I realized I look back at the me before I was arrested and I needed help. I needed guidance. And I needed guidance from someone who understood me for what I've been through. Unless you walk that path and have survived it successfully, um, you really don't know what that's about.
No, of course not. I mean, I have no idea what it's like to suffer from substance use disorder. Well, first of all, I have no idea what it's like to grow up on a reservation. I have no idea what it's like to suffer from substance use disorder, be sexually assaulted in that way. and to spend time in prison, right? I'm not a person who can walk in and, I mean, I can be compassionate, and we all can be more compassionate, but and maybe more empathetic, but we can't really we haven't walked in those shoes. So the person to really help someone is someone like you who's walked in those shoes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I put myself in a very uncomfortable position at Capital Area Counseling when I was released from prison. I was hired as a receptionist, and I was surrounded by counselors and great people that were helping everybody that walked in the door. Um, and that's where I became a better person, was surrounding myself with very good people.
Well, thank God you got that job because it can be very hard to get a job when you have a felony and a prison sentence on your record.
Yeah, it is hard. A lot of women don't have jobs for a couple months and then they have to settle for McDonald's, Burger
Right,
King, fast
right.
food or serving. So I was very fortunate. I seen the position in Indeed and I thought, you know what? That would be a good place for me to be. And thank you to Jennifer Gray. She gave me a chance and I worked there for 6.5 years.
And in the process, you became a peer support specialist, basically? How did that come about?
So I seen the posting for the coaching position with Face It Together, and I applied for the job. And they said I was a perfect fit for um, a coach at the women's prison, and I live maybe a half a mile from the prison, so it was a perfect match.
Oh, it's almost like a divine thing, right? That you
Yeah.
were guided in this way and were able to secure this position. And now, how often do you go in the prison? How many women do you work with? And tell me how you've been able to help them and how they also I always think about this because the helper and the person being helped, oftentimes the person being helped also helps the helper. So can you talk to me about that?
Yes, I have coached 52 women
Mm,
um, in prison so far, and at any one time I have 20 people a week, and I go to the main building on Tuesdays. And then on Thursdays, I go to PMC, which is a lower level of security. And the women there are so thankful for the help. I have a list that's probably 50 names long. Um, Unfortunately, I don't get to see or help everybody before they leave because it's just not possible. Um, the things that the women share with me are, um, of course, they're missing their children is one of them and how they want to get back to their children. So
mhm.
we start working on the traumas that they've lived through and what's been keeping them coming back to their addiction. And most of the time, it's sexual assault. Um, and about 50% of the women, I would say, have lost a loved one, like a mother, father, child, while they're incarcerated. So there's a lot of heaviness when they walk in a room for the first time, and they have no problem expressing their emotions, their feelings, because they don't get the opportunity to do that anywhere else in there.
Well, that's unfortunate. And what percentage of women would you say you work with who are Native American?
I would say 80%.
80%. It helps that you're Native American too, but I think that also it's such a travesty that we lock up so many Native American women who are suffering from substance use disorder that we know the rates are, so much higher among this population. We don't give them the treatment that they need to fully recover. We separate them from their children. It's just like, why can't we come up with a better way?
Yeah, I say that too. And, when I think about federal prison, it's a federal reserve, the land that it's on, right? And
Mm,
so it's a reservation. The federal prisons, the federal reserves, the prisons have more to offer um, individuals than our own reservations.
right, right. It's sad. It's really actually tragic. But I just admire you so much for going back into the prison, offering your life experience to these women. And how do they do you've been doing this for a little while now. How do these women do when they get out? Do you stay in touch with them when they get out of prison?
Definitely. Yes, I stay
Mhm.
in touch with them, and we continue to meet once a week. I will see them as long as they need it, as long as they need support. I have probably, I think, 4 women that I have been seeing for next month would be a year, and they have been out for 6 months now, and one is in college.
Oh,
Um, 2 of them are actually in college. One is gonna go to, culinary school in Sioux Falls, and I do have another one who is, researching cosmetology and trying to find funds to do that.
so they are trying to make better futures for themselves with your guidance.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, I really push education, furthering education, so that they can have a better quality of life.
Yeah. Well, you certainly did that on your own when you went to federal prison. You educated yourself in every way possible. And is it rewarding for you to do this work and to see these women want better for themselves?
Yes, it is. Um, I share my story of everything I've been through and how I handled my situation, and it gives them hope that they can do it too with guidance. And leaving the prison is, um, I don't know what's going to happen to them while I'm gone. Um, South Dakota Women's Prison is very unpredictable. Um, the inmate behavior can be unpredictable. So I can't wait to get back there to check on them and see how they're doing. Um,
You worry about these women. That's what I hear you saying.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I make genuine, real relationships with them, so that they trust me, and yeah, they need that guidance.
Oh, definitely. Well, thank you for all that work that you're doing to help others. How does it help you?
It helps me every single time I share my story. It empowers me, to know that I'm on the right path and that I can continue to speak up. It gives me, the confidence to speak freely about my past, because I have a success story to share. And it gives them enthusiasm and the drive to do the same thing that I did. A lot of them would also want to give back when they're ready. And a few of them have, done interviews with the Face It Together, and they're finding their confidence, in their recovery journey.
Right. And just being able to share their story is probably just a help in itself.
Yeah.
If you're a mother grieving the loss of a child, dear friends of mine, moms who've lost children to fentanyl poisoning and overdose, are hosting the Sisters of Strength Warrior Moms Retreat, October 9th through the 11th at Wildwood Hills Ranch in St. Charles, Iowa. It's a weekend of healing, connection, horseback riding, and creative remembrance with women who understand. This weekend isn't about forgetting, it's about remembering with love. The link and details are in the show notes. I hope you'll join us. Lori's challenges didn't end when she was released from prison in 2018. 5 years later, she experienced another devastating loss when her oldest son, Matt, a respected tribal leader, died.
He'd be 40 this month. Um, the morning after he passed, I it was the first time that I ever wanted to really get high. I woke up and it hit me that he's gone, and I immediately started crying and hollering. And I went in the kitchen to get my phone, and my mom taps me on the shoulder, And I turn around and I grab her and I said, "Mom, I want to get high." And I meant it. For the first time through the last 13 years, I really wanted to get high. So I shared it with her and she said, "Oh no." And she said, "Matt wouldn't want that." And the urge immediately stopped. Um, and I made it through. I made it through his services. I made it here today, grieving him in a healthy way. And yeah, I'm proud of myself for that. That was hard.
I'm proud of you too. There's no easy way through grief. It's you just have to go through it. You have to just plow through it. But so many people, especially someone who suffers from substance use disorder, because you never really you're in recovery, but there's always the threat of relapse there. And when something a profound loss happens in your life, it's understandable that you would have that urge. And I think I've talked to many parents in recovery who've talked about this issue on this podcast that yes, they found a way to stay in recovery, to stay sober, but it wasn't easy. And I can understand your feelings.
Yeah. Even today, I have thoughts of what if I got high, like just to get through a weekend or like his birthday, his anniversary, of his passing. Those are the moments that are truly testing. But I've been able to come up with other activities to honor him. And that is what I turn to now is honoring him in some kind of way, whether it's through an event, a prayer, a morning routine. I find ways that I know he would want me to do. Um, and I do those instead of going straight to having thoughts of using.
And I'm sure in the back of your mind is also that obligation that you now feel to all these women that you're helping and the
Yeah, definitely.
relationships that you've formed. I'm sure you want to
Yeah,
keep doing that. And by using, I mean, it would destroy that really.
take it all away. I was just having a conversation with one of the ladies yesterday, and she was talking about if I get home and everybody's still using, I'm just going to leave. I'm going to go either to Rapid City or Sioux Falls. And she said, if I got high now, I would let so many people down. And she said, including myself. And it had me thinking. So we had a conversation. I thought if I got high now, I was just on KSFY being interviewed here at the prison. All that would just be for nothing.
Right. Somehow sharing your story and sharing it publicly, whether it's through a television interview or a podcast interview, also keeps people accountable in some sense. And I've had other people in recovery who've been volunteering for Emily's Hope and shared their story tell me that by doing this, they're being held accountable to some extent. Not that
Yeah,
not that relapse can't still happen, and we know that it can, but maybe this is one way to prevent it.
of course it is. It gives me the drive to not fail.
And how are your other children doing? Are you in their lives?
Yeah, I am in their lives. Joshua is married. He has 3 children, 3 girls, 10, 8, and 6. Jacob, the baby that I gave to my sister, he still lives with her. I see him every other day or so. I take him to school in the mornings while school's out now. And we do things on weekends if he needs a ride or him and his friends want to go do something. We have a very close relationship now. He calls me Mama Lorie. And I would never take him out of his home. He's been there his whole life and I would never do that to him.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I think it's beautiful that you have a close relationship with him now, but I feel bad that you had to miss for him and for you, that you both had to miss all those years together, and you missed the years with your other sons as well, and it has to be a painful point of contention for you.
It is. the past is something that haunts me from time to time, and it gives me strength to move forward. Um, I don't ever want to put my family through that again. So I put myself in a mindset of how can I make tomorrow better? How do I prepare for tomorrow? Um, and that's how I handle those situations is thinking positive.
It also strikes me that one person's substance use disorder has a ripple effect on so many others, your children, your other relatives, your sister. It's just people don't think about that when a judge is in the courtroom and they sentence you to 10 years behind bars. They're not thinking, how is that impacting her other children? That just I think society doesn't think about that. They just think about punishment.
Yeah, I think the judge does sometimes take into consideration the well being of the family. And in this case, in my case, I think that all he saw was someone pregnant involved in drugs. There are some cases, like here at the prison, where they allow the woman or the mother to be with their baby. I think that's great. I think there should be more opportunity for that to happen, um, or at least have more structured housing for women who are serving their sentences. And maybe that's something the state is looking into and trying to find funding for that, because I think it really helps to give the mother something to wake up to other than withdrawals. If they can carry their baby and keep their baby with them, I think that gives them more hope that they're on the right path.
Right. Certainly, certainly. I think it's actually a travesty of justice the way it's set up for mothers in our state, in our nation, and I think we can do better. And we when we know better, we should do better. But thank you for all the work that you're doing with women in the prison, women getting out of prison, women who are suffering from substance use disorder. Is there anything that you want to leave our audience with after all of your life experience? I mean, I'm really in awe of you and how you've taken a situation and really turned it around to help others. Devastating situation. First, you helped yourself through education and through groups like you talked about that you were in, and then you use that to help others. Anything you want to leave our viewers and listeners with?
Um, yeah, if you're struggling with addiction or struggling with something that you can't carry on your own, it's okay to reach out for help. It's okay to tell somebody and take those actions to find professional help or find someone that can be there with you in the moment. And I know another thing that a lot of women, even men, carry that shame and guilt when you get out of prison. There's nothing we can do to change the past. Uh, the longer we carry that, the more it affects our actions, our thoughts. And self-esteem is such a huge factor when you're re-entering into society and creating a recovery lifestyle. It's okay to let that shame and guilt go. It's okay to leave that behind and move forward and create better tomorrows.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think the people that need to hear that will hear that. And I appreciate everything you do, Lorie. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Grieving Out Loud. We release a new episode every single week, and you can listen to hundreds of other conversations anytime on our website, emilyshope.charity. We've put a link for you in our show notes. And while you're there, you can also read my blog, learn more about our K-12 substance use prevention curriculum, and find resources for those struggling with substance use disorder. If you or someone you love is struggling, please know help is available. Substance use disorder is a medical condition that affects millions of people, and reaching out for support is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, wishing you faith, hope, and courage. This podcast is produced by Casey Wannenberg King
and Kaylee Fitz.